Broncos Country, we are back, baby. The first game preview of the 2025 season. We're going to dive into the Tennessee Titans deeply, talk about some matchups to watch for, some key matchups, get into the game predictions. I'm so excited, man. Just over 48 hours from now, we will get our first glimpse of how this 2025 team is going to look like. So like and subscribe, guys, if you're not already, man. If you love Denver sports, specifically the Broncos, the Nuggets, the Avalanche, hit the subscribe button, man. I think you're going to love the stuff that we have here. And hit me up in the comments. Let me know you guys' thoughts down below. But getting into the Titans, man, this is a weird first opening matchup for me, to be honest with you. Because when I first saw it on the schedule, I was like, oh, that's kind of nice. Like, we got a little bit of an easier opponent. We're opening it up at home. The Broncos have struggled mightily over the last few years to start the season well. So this is about as good of a matchup as we can hope for. But because of that, it's scary. It terrifies me, man, because we need to remember this is a brand new season. What happened last year was important in context, but it does not mean that any of that is going to translate over. And the Broncos have undergone a lot of changes, I think, for the better, and so have the Tennessee Titans. But just to give a little bit of an overview of the Titans last year, right? They obviously struggled, man. Whenever you get the first overall pick, you win 3 games. Nothing is really that pretty, right? The Titans offense averaged 18.3 points per game, and their defense gave up 27. That is the key to winning 3 games in a season. No doubt about it. And here was really the context behind that I think is important. They had terrible quarterback play, right? Very inconsistent QB play. Will Levis was bad. Mason Rudolph is Mason Rudolph. They were one of the worst special teams units. Their offensive line struggled, albeit it was better than the year prior. They didn't really have many skill positions, and their defense wasn't all that good. So not a lot of really good overall there in Tennessee. But I always say, if you're going to lose, you want to lose the right way, and you want to lose a lot so you can give yourself an opportunity to get a franchise quarterback. They got the first overall pick. They drafted Cam Ward, and I think he's going to be a pretty solid pro by all accounts, right? How is he going to mesh with Brian Callahan? We'll see. But overall, man, it's a very different team overall for the Titans. And that's what kind of makes it scary, right? It makes game planning a little bit more difficult. You can look back on maybe some of the tendencies that Brian Callahan ran last year or as a coordinator when he was with the Bengals. You can get an idea of what Cam Ward likes to do and what he doesn't like to do. But really, there's not going to be too much that you can get on film. On the flip side for the offense, in terms of game planning against the defense, I think it'll be a little bit easier. But the Broncos are at home. They are 8.5-point favorites. Last time I checked, the biggest point spread week 1. And there's obviously good reason for that. But that does not mean that we could just rest on our laurels. They got to come out and they've got to really play good football and do whatever they can to not shoot themselves in the foot. So some of the key matchups that I was looking at that I think is going to be really important. Firstly is looking at the interior offensive line, right? So specifically Miners, Wattenberg, and Ben Powers. How are they going to handle the interior defensive line of the Titans, which I would consider that to be their strength? With Tavondre Sweat, I think, making a big leap. I was a big fan of him coming out of Texas. Obviously, Jeffrey Simmons is one of the better interior defensive linemen as well. You cannot let those guys, A, wreck the game, but B, you're going to have to establish the run game. This is a new era in Broncos football. We invested a lot of assets and a lot of resources into making the run game better. So can we run right at them? That's something that I'm interested to see on the offensive side of the ball in terms of how we handle it for that, right? And so that's going to be one major one. And secondly, it's going to be Tyler Lockett versus Riley Moss, in my opinion, man. Yes, Tyler Lockett's a little bit of an aging player, but last year, Tyler Lockett was playing for the Seahawks. We opened up the season against them, and he torched Riley Moss. And in fact, he got the game-sealing catch on him, albeit it was good coverage by Moss. But I'm going to be interested to see, is Moss looking to get a revenge game? That's going to be something to really keep an eye out for. Or if they put Lockett in the slot and they have Ridley and Iomanner on the outsides, how's McMillan going to handle him, right? Because that is if I was the Titans, that's a matchup that I would look to try to take advantage of, whether it's on McMillan or whether it's on Jahdae Barron in the slot. So we shall see. I think the big thing for the Broncos, without a doubt, in this one is going to be stifling, just pressure. And we're going to get into the keys to the matchup, but it's going to be make Cam Ward's life hell. Even if you're not getting pressure, you got to have the sticky coverage. And the Titans, man, they've got some unique and intriguing skill players, right? I mean, Calvin Ridley, we know, is a pretty solid receiver. Tyler Lockett has always been a very productive guy throughout his career, but Alec Ayomanor, man, coming out of Stanford, I was a big fan of him. How's he going to look, right? There's a lot of those unknowns. You kind of like that. And then another key matchup on the flip side, because Dre Greenlaw is now looking very iffy to play in week 1. Man, Chigo Okonkwo or Gunnar Helm against those inside linebackers. Again, I try to put my mind into the minds of the offensive coordinator. What is Brian Callahan trying to take advantage of? And when you look at this defense, clearly the one place that you can exploit is going to be the inside linebackers. Trying to get Sternad or Karene Reed or Lavelle Bailey or Alex Singleton into coverage. We know they can play the run pretty well, but you want to get them in coverage. So it's going to be interesting to see how they attack that and how we ultimately counter. But Chigo Okonkwo, I think, is a really underrated receiver. I think he's very solid. They got Gunnar Helm, who's had a really good offseason. He was great, at Texas as well. So we shall see. Those are going to be some very, very key matchups for me, man. I think it's something to really keep an eye out for. So let me know what you guys' thoughts below. If there's any other key matchups that you feel like I'm missing out on, I'd love to, kind of know your thoughts there. And then here's some keys to the game for me, man. Number one, most important thing that you can do against the Tennessee Titans or any opponent that you are supposed to beat that has a rookie quarterback or that you just have more firepower than, you cannot let them establish a run game. You cannot. Tony Pollard is a very good running back, probably the most underrated running back in the NFL. He had a very good year last year. He can catch the ball being a former receiver. You cannot let them run the ball. Absolutely not. You've got to put all the pressure on Cam Ward and force him to beat you with his hand, with his arm. If he does that, then it is what it is at that point. But you have to stop the run. And then number two, which is, these are always going to be keys to any game, but especially with opponents that you feel like are inferior to you. You got to win the turnover battle, or at least be even in the turnover battle. There is nothing that evens out the playing field more in the NFL than the turnover battle. You could have a team that is a 2-touchdown favorite, and if they turn the ball over 2-3 times and they're -2 in the turnover battle, it's going to be a push game. So cannot give them short fields, cannot give them any kind of hope or any opportunities. You got to play clean football, and that's something that I really want to see. The Broncos have done a good job of not turning the ball over. What their Achilles heel was a lot of the penalties, especially early in the year, but we've got to force turnovers, and we cannot, by any means, turn the ball over. And if we do, we got to make sure that we force a couple back. And then as a result, so if you're stopping the run and you're, not turning the ball over on offense, pressuring Cam Ward should not be very difficult. This is a defense that led the league in sacks last year. I think that they can certainly do that again this year. And the Titans offensive line is a mediocre to slightly below average offensive line. So you should be able to get a lot of pressure on him. But if you are not stopping the run, it's going to be very difficult to get pressure. So pressuring Ward, making his life hell. He's already on the road. He's already going to be in a loud environment. The Broncos cannot afford to give them any kind of hope, especially early in the game, right? Because early in the game, that's kind of when the tone gets set. So what I think is going to ultimately happen, man, this is kind of how I envision the game going. The Broncos, historically, under Vance Joseph, the defense kind of tends to start the game a little slow, right? A lot of the times you'll see the offense, the first drive the opposing offense gets, I feel like they kind of get into a rhythm. They kind of get things going. Sometimes we might give up a touchdown. Sometimes we might give up points. So it kind of bend but don't break. But kudos to VJ. He does a wonderful job of adjusting in game to kind of get an idea of what they're doing and pointing out some tendencies. So I kind of see that happening. I feel like Cam Ward and the Titans, man, they're going to come out. They're going to have a scripted game plan, some things that they're really comfortable with, try to get the ball out of his hands, try to get a rhythm going. So it might not be all that pretty. They might be able to kind of get a couple things going early, but I do think the Broncos later on will adjust. And on the flip side, it's going to be important to see how Bo Nix and this offense responds. Now, here's what I'm worried about seeing. All right. What I'm worried about is like the Broncos are going to try to overly force a run game. And what I mean by that is, should they stick with the run game? Yes. Should they emphasize the run game? Absolutely. But it does got to be one of those things where you can't expect for your run game to just be very good all of a sudden in week one. Like if you're kind of struggling to get things going, you've got to be able to just do what you can to be able to move the ball. I don't think that's going to happen because, in fact, it's kind of the opposite of what Sean Payton's done. But there's so many in the media here locally that keep talking about this is the game where the run game's got to get right and you got to be able to establish the run. And it's like, you've got to do whatever the hell you got to do to get the offense going and winning. Like if the run game is not working, you don't use this game to get the run game well. You work on that progressively throughout the season, regardless of who the opponent is. So they just got to go out there, man, and do their thing. But I'm really excited to see how the Broncos are ultimately going to play in this game. I think that there's a lot of key matchups on the offensive side for us as well. Obviously, we're very familiar with Cody Barton, who is with the Titans now. I liked Cody. I thought he was fine. I thought he was pretty solid. But what we do know about Cody Barton is he struggles in the pass game. They've got to be able to find ways to get Evan Ingram matched up on Cody Barton and really take advantage of that matchup. Very, very much so. And additionally, I think that we should be able to run the ball very well. I mean, this is not the best run defense. Now, they ranked second in the NFL last year, but that's also because, teams really weren't, they ranked second in the NFL on pass defense. And that's because teams really weren't throwing the ball on them a lot because they had a big lead. They didn't feel like they necessarily had to. But, it's the second year in defensive coordinator, I think it's Dennard Wilson or Kennard. Dennard Wilson, I believe. System. He's a pretty intriguing up and coming coach, right? He's got some Jonathan Gannon ties. He's coached for the Eagles, for the Ravens. So he's kind of an up and coming coach. So they're going to be better in the second year of that system. You see them take a leap. So just being able to exploit some of the personnel advantages that I feel like we have. Super excited about it, man. Our special teams is going to play a key role like it does in a lot of games tomorrow as well. I think we have a very big advantage on them still in the special teams department. So hopefully that is something that can continue there. Ultimately, I do have the Broncos winning this game. Now, they're 8.5-point favorites. And to be honest, guys, I don't know if we will necessarily cover. It could be one of those backdoor covers that the Titans end up getting late. So we will see. But my final game prediction for this week 1 matchups is that the Broncos will score 30 points and the Titans will score 16. So I do have them covering, but it could be one of those where maybe they sneak in a backdoor cover, right? They get a last minute touchdown. It's 30-20 and it is what it is. But I got the Broncos winning 30-16. And yeah, that's that, man. Love to know what you guys think below. I hope you guys are excited about this game as I am, but let's go out there and start the season the right way. 1-0. All the fans going to the games, we need y'all to be crazy. Let's get it rocking. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, man. And until the next video, go Broncos, baby. Peace.